Good morning. Hello. Hello. Can anyone hear me? Huh. Interesting. Let's see. Mute. No, it's on. Hello?
Hi, Joyce. It's Sal.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear anything and I thought, oh, my speaker's not working, but I just checked it out and it's yeah, I'm good to go.
Good.
Did you go to the Zoom meeting for the town board last night?
No, I didn't, but I was just reading about it.
Yeah. Reading. Where were you reading about it?
Actually, what site was it? Because Lauren Dixon was
Oh,
doing
yeah.
something. Oh, you know what? It was the Monday night meeting. I think it was with the city.
Oh, with the city? No,
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Canandaigua Town Board meeting.
No, that one I didn't do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was going to say that was just 6 o'clock last night. Well, it's already in the paper or someplace, but I suppose there could be comments on Facebook or wherever because
Yeah.
it was quite a long and quite a robust community, dialogue. Put it that way.
Mhm.
Good morning.
Good morning, Oksana.
Oksana.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Good
Joyce,
morning.
was there one particular area that they were all so
Yeah,
robust
it
about?
was a public meeting for the purchase of Titchener Point.
Right.
Yeah, and also the RMS
Uh-huh.
property. Yeah.
Hmm.
Morning, Sarah.
Would that have been recorded?
Yes, it was.
Oh, good.
Should
Okay.
be on the
Are
town
you
web.
guys talking about the town board meeting?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's recorded and it'll be on the YouTube channel whenever I put it on there.
Okay.
Probably later this week.
Hi, Kathy.
Good morning.
There.
Morning, Kathy.
Good morning.
Hey,
How are
Kathy.
you?
I'm good. A little sleepy.
Oh, right. Okay.
Long night.
You had executive session after that long dialogue with the community, didn't you?
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
Morning, Sarah.
I'm sure it'll be a long day too.
Morning.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
Morning,
Hi, Tom.
Good morning, Tom.
Bill.
Morning.
Morning, Gary. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Matt. Thanks for joining us again.
Morning.
Thanks, Matt. And thanks for calling me back. I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to call you back.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Anytime.
I did send a reminder out this morning. A few people responded, said they would not be able to attend. But I do hope we have a pretty good showing. Hi, Adeline.
Hi.
Hi, Adelaide.
Hey Sal, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Valerie, I love your name.
Oh, that was from a Zoom call. I think I put that on.
Oh,
I will correct that immediately.
Oh, I like it.
I must have been talking to a bunch of youngsters.
I'm gonna have to remember to do that. That's funny.
hi, Val.
Hi, Oksana. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
Eric, congratulations.
Yes, that's quite a move for you.
Can't hear you, Eric.
You must be muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a big opportunity for me. I'm excited. It'll be a challenge, but
Absolutely.
looking forward to it.
You're
Yeah.
gonna fix the whole thing, right? It's gonna be perfect now?
I'll do my best. Make it look like the Canadian side.
No, I don't know the Canadian side either, but
All right, it's 9:01. I'm sure we'll get a few people joining here in a few minutes, but we can probably go ahead and get started. Although I got all ready and then forgot to pull up the file. So hold on a second, let me go get the files. Unless Eric, do you happen to have it?
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing your screen?
Sure. You got to enable it, I think.
Oh, I do, okay. Okay. So as Eric pulls up the economic development and tourism goals for us, I think most of you who are on here today were here with us last week or have been here with us over the last few weeks, but just in case, we've been spending every week going through one goal or part of one goal at a time in detail, trying to get it to where we're comfortable with it for a public hearing. And some of our economic development committee members are with us today, and Matt Horn from the LDC and from MRB Group is with us today. And we began this discussion last week on economic development, and it was a really good discussion. We just realized we couldn't get it all done at once. And we do have, we probably should stop right at 10 today. I think there's a couple people on here who are going to need to be at a meeting at 10. I know Kathy, you have to go, and
I do,
Doug
yes.
will also have to go. I don't think he's on here yet, but so just so those people don't have to miss out on the conversation. Oh yeah, you too, Gary. We should probably just quit right at 10. And I think, I can't remember exactly where we stopped last week, but we had already gone over the goals and the measurables. Oh,
Right.
Eric, this is your working copy, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, this is where I'm making notes, just so you guys can see kind of the notes that I'm making too.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But I don't think we got into the action steps, I believe.
I think,
Yeah, I think we did, and Matt gave us a lot of input from the LDC about what they were able to do and willing to do for the town. And so there was going to be some kind of an edited version of the things that we actually talked about and agreed upon last time.
we did
And
share, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And weren't we going to be looking at the comments from Doug?
Yeah, I sent that.
All right.
Yeah, and that's what Eric has pulled up too. Sorry, I'm just
Okay.
opening up my notes from last time. See where we got. Oh, I didn't write which one we finished on.
Yeah.
I can say, I mean, I looked at, I did have an opportunity to review Doug's notes, and I think, as usual, Doug is incredibly insightful and incisive, and gets to the point on all of these. So I was happy to see his comments, and to see, you know, the partnership evolving with the LDC. One big kind of chunky item that we probably should think through is, and I really have seen this arm wrestling. It's not an arm wrestling match. That implies there's some kind of conflict, but I've seen this this debate kind of go on over the years in different communities around the role of tourism in economic development. I know Valerie's here, and I think it'd be valuable to get her take. You know, certainly, I think tourism is economic development. The reasons why communities are excited about developing out as a tourism destination have a lot to do with the reasons they're excited about developing out as a business destination, right? And so I think tourism has a lot to lend to the town's economic development strategy. So I'd be interested in Valerie's take. I didn't mean to hijack I always wait for a moment of even an absolute split second of silence to wedge my nose in on an agenda, but I would be.
We did invite you here, so.
I would be interested in Val's take on how tourism nests up. Doug suggests that it's a good way to get down. I guess you're at 11 sections here, and it'd be a good way to get down to, or 11 goals, be a good way to get down to 10 goals. What do you think, Val?
So I'm catching up on the town side of things. And so last week when I wrote, I obviously just looked at what was in front of me. And that's where I put some comments on if tourism is to remain in there, given what we're going through right now. I think some of the goals or the tactics have to shift a little bit. And actually that shift does cause it more to align more with economic development than we've ever been before, because we're doing business recovery, we're doing workforce development, and then and building that sense of place that is a common goal between those two sort of fields out there. So it may be surprising for a lot of people to hear me say that I think the most important thing is that tourism is only one aspect of economic development, even though I think it belongs under there, because it's that well-balanced character of economic development that we need to move forward. And we're seeing more of this more of this going together in terms of, again, lifestyle type, not amenities, that's the wrong word, but lifestyle type actions, I'll call them. So anyway, I'm glad to look through. So I had said to try to measure the number of tourists to Canandaigua or the Finger Lakes region is almost an impossible goal, first of all. And it sort of does not matter how many. It sort of matters more who, and that is in no sense a judgment on who, but you can get more economic development opportunity by attracting certain kinds of visitors, you know, and to match your amenities better. So I don't think the number of tourists is a good goal. I think their spending is a very good goal. And that again goes to economic development. And spending can be measured a different way. And then I had recommended that we add and maybe somewhere else, business retention right at the moment. You don't want to lose some of these small mom and pop businesses, and it may take an extra focus on what it is they need, especially now, to be able to remain in business, because that really is the flavor of this community, the town of Canandaigua that I also live in, as you know, is those small businesses, the little places like Cheshire, you know, as part of the town, and those outlying mom and pops, et cetera. And then the final thing I said is maybe a goal surrounding workforce retention. or building even. I don't even think it's just retention. I think we're going to need to rebuild a workforce to meet the new demands that are out there, and there's got to be a lot of cross training, et cetera. So that was my feedback on it. So did I answer the question, Matt, in terms of, were you asking if I thought it should be under economic development or separate?
Yeah, and I think your last note there, it kind of rings the bell for consolidation here, just because workforce is critical, and it's identified in the economic development section, and I think it absolutely applies to tourism and kind of retooling that workforce for the next generation or the next evolution of the visitation economy or the hospitality economy, and thinking about what skill set that workforce is going to have to bring. And then similarly, one of the last goals on economic development is engaging with the Regional Economic Development Council. And in the economic development goal, I think Eric's getting it. Take advantage of the REDC to obtain funding for local tourism initiatives. I think you can just say take advantage of that to obtain funding to advance all of our economic development strategies, right? And tourism would be one of those. Workforce certainly is one, and et cetera, et cetera. So,
yeah, the only thing I worry about it without naming it, so to speak, that it gets lost in the bigger economic development goals. If we just smash it all in there, so to speak. So. And it wouldn't bother me if I felt that the techniques to revitalize and fund tourism and the measurements were the same as for other economic development, but they are distinctive. So I wouldn't want it to get lost in there. We value, for instance, many part-time jobs. You can work at Bristol Mountain in the winter, Roseland Water Park in the summer. You can, and those are not counted in the same way that other economic development jobs are, but they're very essential types of jobs for our industry. So I would want to make sure that we don't lose the uniqueness of building tourism and measuring tourism within that broad context.
Valerie, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have a question for you regarding the measurables, and the last one there that you talked about, the value of tourist spending and tourism economy. How do you chart that? I mean, isn't that something that now is really would be kind of thrown into the economic development category right now? Or how do you trace specific tourism spending if we mesh it in with economic development, in that category? How do you do that now?
So there is a report that the state of New York does annually, even albeit often late, but it's called the Tourism Economics Report, and it's a nationwide model that New York also adapts. In that model, they make the assumption that, true, there's a lot of overlap. I go to a retail store and buy an antique store like I did yesterday, bought something, so does a tourist who was saying, hey, we're from out of town. So we're both there, we're both spending money, so how do you split that? Sure. So the best model we have is the model that tourism economics does, which says we're gonna base it on the theory that tourists stay overnight. So if you can begin to value the overnight accommodations and how much is spent there, then there's certain assumption you can make about also spending on restaurants and also spending on retail and also spending. So that model is one that cannot separate the two, but it can at least give a platform for distinctiveness of the one.
Thank you. That's a good clarification, because it brings us back to the fact that it is a part of tourism is a part of economic development, and perhaps that's another main reason why we should include it as a section instead of two separate ones.
I have a piggyback question on that. On the tourism spending, what we're talking about, with hotel stays or whatever, is that something we need to spell out in a measurable and pull out and say, we're going to track spending on overnight stays, or is that just assumed? Is there like a package of data that is alluding to the value of tourist spending?
Well, if I could just.
Val, kind of in that same vein,
Yeah.
in your data and the data that you get from the county, overnight beds or overnight accommodations, where that one way to get at that data can be to look at the bed tax, right? To look at the overnight stay, at the hotel tax. Does the county parse that out though by jurisdiction?
Oh, I don't know.
No, they do not. It's in totality.
Yeah, because cities can get at it, right? Cities levy their own tax, but the town doesn't. And in Ontario County, sometimes we miss big sweeping chunks, like speaking of the evolution of tourism, like Airbnb and VRBO and those other things that that we just need to get up to speed on getting data for. That's going to be a challenge all the way around. I mean, we talked about spending in a different bucket around sales tax, because sales tax is a great indicator of economic performance, what's happening in the community. It's certainly impactful on the visitation conversation, but generally just economic productivity can be measured with that. But my last interaction with the county was once the two cities opted in to the sales tax collection model, where we do a centralized sales tax collection at the county just stopped tracking it individually by jurisdiction. And I'm not certain that we can get at Canandaigua city and town specific data there.
Well, my question, Val, was I was wondering, again, with the measurables, is there a way to indicate which businesses are tourism focused? Like, could we measure the number of businesses that have a primary focus in tourism, for example, B&Bs?
We keep a very robust database here, and it is tagged by town. So we could give what the town of, it may need a little bit of work, especially right now, but we could give the town of Canandaigua what we consider to be a tourism inventory as of this point. Doesn't mean it's exclusively tourism, but it's places that we believe tourists are interested in. We can give them that.
I think that would be a great start. Sal, you were going to say something?
Well, a lot of it ties into what's already been said, that a major component of what the downtown, particularly the bid, looks at is that number of overnight stays. How many people are there for how long, especially now, and a lot of this has changed so much in terms of us being able to, or in terms of them being able to do fundraising, certainly, has been COVID. Being separated. How do we do this? How do you manage that to do it? So it's very important. And that's always been towards the top of the list is tourism for our economic development.
The other thing I mentioned in my comments, and it sort of sticks out and is a little bit of an aside from the economic development piece, but it may fit somewhere. And I call it the goal related to community welcomes and front door hospitality. And I'm trying to help on the sign committee for the town, but there's other ways of creating a welcome to your town or to this jurisdiction. And I don't think the town should lose sight of that as a goal and an opportunity. And if you think about the way you travel to other destinations and your impression upon those entering, and the ability to keep, for instance, an architectural theme going or whatever it is. And I think that's part of a sense of place that only can be controlled at the town community level, committing to a sense of place. I just sent everyone a copy of the 2019 tourism economics report. So it's a PowerPoint, so it's rather large. It may take a little time to come through. But definitely have it and see what its context is. It's for the Finger Lakes region, and Ontario County is one piece. But to Matt's point, it doesn't break it down to communities.
Okay, thank you though. I think that's still good though. Take a look.
So Valerie, regarding the welcoming aspect and the sense of place, you know, we're trying to do that with the Uptown. We did a study, 2 years ago, and now we're working on the new form-based code for that area.
Yes.
And implementation, I hope, will be soon, so that we do have a sense of place as visitors and even residents are coming into on 332.
Yeah.
I think this also leads into the Gateway Signage Committee that we started, and then, you know, it kind of fell by the wayside there. But it also talks about sense of place with the vision of that signage. And I think now is, you know, waiting for the adoption of the Uptown study proposals and form-based code and things like that, that we can incorporate that maybe into a sense of place for the whole town. You know, maybe the signage replicates or in some way, you know, whatever Uptown is doing, or, you know, whatever. So that I think the sense of place is important, really important for us, because we do have a separate vision from the city of Canandaigua and from other areas in the county.
Yeah, well, and just a quick note on that gateway signage, it was one of the goals for this year, again, for CIC, and the money's back in the budget. So those of you who were on it will be hearing from me soon. We can get started again. Okay, sorry, I know we're bouncing around a little bit, but that's okay. I just want to make sure we don't skip over anything in the action steps for the economic development section. And I apologize, I can't remember exactly where we stopped, but go ahead, Eric.
We're all in agreement, though, that the tourism will be merged with economic development. Is that correct? That it will be one goal?
Yeah, I think that's been the common theme over the last couple conversations. And with that, what Valerie said earlier, if it is actually going to be combined, where they're not even listed separately, I want to make sure it is called out somehow within those action steps. Or the title, I don't know if it needs to be called out in the title, but yeah, we may have to. And then those action steps.
Will it
should
just
include the
include
specific tourism ones too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll put it in there. It doesn't seem like it will be too difficult to differentiate, especially because these ones all kind of include tourism in it, with the exception of this function on it, an economic development piece on its own.
So how do we rework the two goals into one?
We could probably just add this onto the end of it. I mean, there's where maximize opportunities.
So quick question, are your recommended action steps in any sort of order, or is there a preferential order to them at all, or?
There isn't. Once they're finalized, they'll have
okay,
ratings on which ones are priority or stuff like that.
So, so Eric, are you the one controlling the document?
Yes, sorry, I'm jumping around so much.
Could you go up to the tourism or the economic development goal, excuse me? Because and I was trying to look at that beside the tourism goal and see, and I think it's interesting. I mean, a quick glimpse at this one, I haven't thought a lot about it. And I think it's almost passively acknowledging tourism through the town's natural, cultural, and historic resources. But it's interesting to me that it does seem to, the words that bother me are development without compromising. So that's sort of like, okay, we're going to make sure we do all the economic development, and as long as it doesn't hurt tourism, as opposed to being more aggressive in reaching some of the tourism, or excuse me, towns' natural, cultural, and historic goals. So I think maybe a little bit of a adjustment of this, if it's possible, and I don't know if it is, but to eliminate the without compromising and make it more an active, along with promoting, developing the town's natural, cultural, and historic resources, or something that puts them together rather than saying, we're gonna do this first and make sure we don't harm that one.
Yeah, well, I know
What
why
if-
that's in there in that language. We don't want to develop over the top of all of our natural resources. Preventing industrial development from encroaching on our natural resources. So we'd have to do it without losing that phrase, I think.
What if we just say enhancing the town's natural, cultural, and historic resources?
Sure.
When you
Could,
take,
but I don't think
without-
anyone would agree that industrial development enhances it. We do want development in the right place, though. I
No,
think
no,
it
no.
says two different things.
Yeah, I think that's so.
You could say while protecting.
Yeah.
we use that word so much, protecting. I don't know. I don't think it goes there.
Well,
It
what
will
about what
maximize
Eric said in the
opportunities for-
beginning? Can we just add in the part of the tourism goal? I know, and I know everybody can read this differently. I read it with natural resource protection hat on.
Yeah, I do too. And I think
Um,
that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do with form-based code, with the other codes that we're looking at. We're looking to protect because they are fragile assets of the town. And they have been for a long time. And so we have to make the distinction. It's kind of like our identity here. We have to protect what we have as natural resources and cultural and historic resources also, because that's what actually is our sense of place.
Exactly.
I'm wondering if it's the addition of a sentence about sense of place.
That would be great because it's who we
Yeah.
are. And we should be promoting that. We should not be sacrificing that to commercialization or economic development, in place of this, in place of protections. They have to go hand in hand, and we have to be careful about that because it can be a slippery slope.
I think we're protecting and encouraging our sense of place. It would be a nice addition in there.
It's just the wordsmithing here. I think we have down, the concepts, and I'm confident that that's our goal is to, bring those two together in a very compatible way.
Would it make sense? I mean, because that last, those last few things are really what drive on a personal feeling is what drives our tourism. People come here for the lake. People come here for the views.
They
People
come here for
for the history or whatever.
The vistas, the rural vistas, the agricultural institutions that we have, they come there because it presents itself with a difference to the city environment, say the city of Canandaigua environment, or to other environments that tourists come from, which are more populated and all that kind of stuff.
I think it's important to have that, and I think we do, at least, right here and also in the natural resources and agricultural section, kind of the more rural character, natural character. I just wouldn't want to part ways too much with the economic development to rehash natural resources again. Also, since we only have a half hour left, it'd be nice to go through the action steps if we could.
Okay. Eric, why don't we, I know you're going to wordsmith it, and maybe we can just revisit that one, the goal at another meeting when we have another version of it. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on.
At our last meeting, I thought we broadly went over what the LDC is doing and touched on the fact that a lot of these are going to be done by the LDC. This one will be done by the LDC.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think. Identifying properties, that one's not the town. Business development, I think that was something that the LDC was kind of doing.
I was thinking perhaps you should add a line that indicates coordinating with the LDC on measurables, something along that line.
I wouldn't want to put it in this document. We do have something that will say, supporting with the LDC. So we just
I would just think that there's a potential for people who aren't aware that the LDC is doing that to not, to be looking for those goals still in there.
Okay. Well, all right. Yeah, I get.
Well, I think anything that will help the CIC to manage, okay, our oversight of these action steps would be important, because this is really our document here. How will we work with the, with those action steps that would be LDC, kind of responsible for? So,
Yeah, and I didn't, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Joyce. I was gonna say, I wouldn't want you to drop anything from these action steps, because these are the towns, these are the town's strategies for advancing. You think of the LDC as a tool, right? So the town's gonna use the LDC as a tool to collect and report data on economic performance, to survey employers on business climate, et cetera. So in all those places where Doug said the LDC is doing this, or the LDC should be doing this, I read his intent as the LDC, for lack of a better word here, this isn't the legal, in case anybody's a lawyer on the call. I know Kathy is. So in the not in the legal sense an agent, but the LDC acting on your behalf, right? To advance your strategies and your goals. So I wouldn't knock a bunch of these out because the LDC is doing them. I would capitalize on the fact that you have a partner.
Absolutely.
Similarly to the way that Valerie is executing on a lot of these strategies with her organization.
Well, and we don't need to go back to the goal, but just we don't need to answer it right now either, but just should we consider saying working with the LDC, blah, 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 blah. Something to consider in the goal instead of in the action steps, because
No, I think you identify your partners in the action steps. Who's going to help the town achieve this goal? And this is what the responsible entity, or parties is all about. You name all of those parties, the LDC, the Economic Development Committee, who knows, maybe you would even ask the ECB to do something, to take part of that responsibility. So you want to identify all the partners, but I don't think you want to do that in your goal.
so maybe we're good with just the responsible entity section. And I think in Doug's example, he actually split it into primary and secondary.
Yeah. That's fine. And there will be somebody who takes it, like on some of the first goal, let's say the primary responsible party would be the LDC, because they've got all the, but the Economic Development Committee can also add to information on that. I don't know about whether primary and secondary are for our information. That's something that the CIC can establish as we go along, and we probably will. Who are we going to talk to about this, first of all? And then, who would be the second level partners in that?
Okay. All right. Are there any other action steps we haven't touched on that we need to consider?
It was such kind of we went back and forth to the pages a little bit there, and I can't remember now exactly what we did on what. I don't know if we did them all.
Okay. Well, here's a different question. Are there any action steps that anyone has a question on or has issue with?
I would like some clarity, and actually it's the first one, getting back to the baseline. And here I see Doug's notes, LDC matrix.
Mm-hmm.
What are we talking about here?
Yeah. I think Matt kind of clarified that last time, but maybe it needs reclarification again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? The survey question or the measurables question?
He's asking about where it says the LDC matrix, right, Sal? Are you just asking for clarification on what that is?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So in the market analysis, we identified some data points that we're going to continue to track, and I think that might be what he's referencing.
Okay.
But I think earlier someone had referenced making sure that the CIC or the EDC or the town or the town in general influences what the data we're tracking, right? The measure, not the actual data, but the points of data that we're
Compilation.
yeah, exactly. So that what I might suggest is that we pull out that data when we get into implementation itself. We don't have to do it today, but when we get to implementation, that we share with the CIC what it is we're tracking now, and you say, hey, we'd like to also see this or also see that, and if it's something we can get at, then that we add it to the list.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sounds good.
To Sarah's question about what's here, or maybe what's not here, do you think there should be any recognition of at least one deliverable surrounding the COVID recovery, et cetera? Or is it just it's just taken for granted in the context of all, it needs to be considered in every one of these, so to speak?
There is some text in the plan itself talking about it and how it's going to impact, a lot of stuff. I don't know. I don't think we've done that in any of the other goals.
Okay.
Yeah, unless, do you have anything in mind that you're thinking of? I
No.
think that generally these action items will probably help in different areas of the recovery effort.
Mm-hmm. No, nothing in particular, just.
Is there a particular reason why we're calling out to support hemp, cannabis, and sustainable products, and not trends like, I don't know, beer, small breweries, wineries, things like that? I'm just wondering why we're particularly indicating a support needed for hemp and cannabis businesses.
So, again, just real quickly on how these were developed, they just came out of an open meeting with community members, essentially. There's very light editing on the action steps that they put in. So essentially at a meeting, somebody suggested that as an action item, and here it is in the plan. So this is brought to the CIC for kind of your editorial review.
I mean, from my personal perspective, I would rather see it supporting local businesses that take advantage of trends, trending, new emerging areas, whatever you want to phrase it. But I don't personally see a need to call out hemp and cannabis operations, particularly given that that's not even, recreational use is not yet legal in New York State.
This kind of goes along with, I can't remember, it might have been the agriculture goal, but there was a similar action step. And I think that we said something similar, that it was about diversity of crops and not necessarily which crop, but encouraging diverse products. So maybe that's kind of a similar comment here. It may have been the same person suggesting it.
Yeah, and if that's what you're after, if you're really talking about agricultural endeavors, supporting agri-based businesses, particularly sustainably sourced agri-based businesses, you might want to say that. I mean, if you read it just straight up here, support local businesses that take advantage of trends, and when such as doesn't typically means not all inclusive, right? Or not an exhaustive list. And so vape stores are a trend. Is that, I mean, is that what we're looking for in Uptown, or, you know, those kinds of things? So I agree the way the such as reads, it looks like we're talking about agri-based businesses. And if that's the case, we ought to just say that.
We already have in the agricultural, section. The one thing that I think this also gets at when it talks about sustainable products, that's also speaks to, farmers markets, those kinds of things, honey production, maple production, all of those things, which goes back to the ag section again. So I think all of those were covered in the ag section. So what this means is, like you said, the vape stores, the actual farmers market destination where all the farmers come together, like, what's happening in the city of Canandaigua. And so maybe medical marijuana store, I don't know, maybe medical marijuana stores will come, are trending in that way too, like they are in Colorado and California. I don't know, but so it's kind of, have we already taken care of it, or do we still need to talk about it?
I guess I'm just wondering what the intention was. Was it to promote a diverse,
Yeah.
retail experience, or sustainable, or both?
Other trends except these? Take advantage of trends. What are some other trends besides these agricultural related items would there be?
I would suggest there might be a trend towards virtual shopping, online and virtual shopping.
Now that, I think that's where this belongs. There's something like that belongs in the trending. I think these items here have already been covered in maybe the ag section.
Well, I'll just say real quick, the ag committee did meet and talk about these last week, and they were more interested in just promoting diverse crops, or a diversity of crops, rather than pointing out which one. I think one of the members said, well, we don't care which crops, it's better to have multiple kinds than everybody growing the same thing.
I think that's a good point that's been brought up. There's very little mention, in fact, I haven't seen any yet, about technology development, how that's going to be affecting, as Vale said, online shopping, hospitality, you name it.
Contactless, touchless transactions, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So is this action step turning into more of that we want to make sure that we're supporting local businesses' ability to keep up with current trends, or to stay on top of them, or take advantage of them? Or
we do that? How would we do, what would be?
I'm not suggesting, just asking, because I think we're pulling away from what the original action step was. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's okay, but where are we going with it?
I think replacing this action step with something that Val and Sal are saying about the trends about technology. I mean, there are all kinds of technological trends now, whether we support businesses because of these technological trends and how we would maybe help train or something like that.
Broadband support would be useful.
Broadband would be really useful in our town. So
it's in a different goal.
Mm-hmm.
It is, okay. So maybe we don't need this.
I have a question. It's not related to this goal necessarily. We have just about, we're on to 3 pages worth of goals, probably somewhere around 20 or so, or action steps, excuse me. Is that too many?
Mm.
Take a look at the facilitate school partnerships for skills training, especially including skilled trades and agricultural. I don't know how we would partner with skills training. What would the town provide for that action item? What can we actually do to provide support for, say, these different kind of trades that need to be, we need to talk about training for new kinds of trades. How would we do that? I mean, action steps is something that you could do. So I want to know, what is it that we can do?
Yeah, so I like the word facilitate there, because we talked about, the LDC, one of the LDC's favorite roles is as a convener or facilitator. I don't think it's in the town's best interest or in your wheelhouse or in the LDC's best interest or wheelhouse to develop training programs and that kind of thing. We've got a lot of organizations in the community who do that already and do it really well. But what the LDC may do at the town's direction is say, listen, Acoustis is a primary partner for us. They're a major employer, Pactive. These are major employers. What are their workforce needs? And then convening folks like Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES, FLCC, MCC, and others to say, how can we match up your training needs with your training resource? Workforce Investment Board. How do we match up your training needs with your training resources, just so that that Acoustis recognizes the town as a partner in that regard. I don't think the town has a direct program development responsibility or capability. I think it's more of a convening role, a facilitating role.
Did you say advocacy?
Advocacy, you got it. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You're right on that, Matt, because we discussed this at length, as Sarah will tell you, in the Agriculture Committee, and we are involved with BOCES and other school systems where they can combine and teach students, things for the agricultural field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great programs out there already.
Eric, be sure and put responsible party LDC.
And Eric, to your
work is done.
to your question about is it too many? I don't know. I mean, I would hate to get rid of action steps just because we want to dwindle it down, but I
think the other thing
there may be areas to combine or make it a little more broad.
I think
so
we
could
have
maybe
to go back to what is the CIC capable of doing with these? Are we capable of actually supporting home-based businesses? These are action steps. I don't know how you support home-based businesses. We have the codes that kind of regulate that. Maybe that's a code thing. Maybe this isn't a good example, or maybe it is, I don't know. But I always go back to these action steps and say, how is the CIC going to administer the end product of this action step? That's what this is really, the CIC does. So that's kind of my dilemma with all of these. We have to identify what it is we can actually do and not just some platitude of what we'd like to see.
I do think a lot of them could be combined. I mean, I could see support home-based businesses being along with the higher up step regarding create opportunities for businesses to connect, for example. I think that's one very easy way to support a home-based business is to create connection opportunities and networking opportunities.
Yeah, that's true. This is a very big chunk of responsibility for the CIC, this section.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be hard. I mean, it really is going to take a lot of effort to work with what we actually can accomplish. And this is just the beginning of the debate about these action steps at the CIC level. So anyway, there'll be more talk. And it's going to take a lot of our time to be able to work through them. But we got 10 years, so I guess that's good too.
I know the devil's in the detail, but I think it's going to take a little definition of the word support and people's different ranges of what that may mean. To me, support may mean something, but it may mean something way different to you, and getting that to the middle is going to be the challenge of everyone, I think.
Yeah, and in no way I'm trying to speak for Doug, but I remember a comment he gave in one of the meetings that leaving some of these loose provides flexibility when it comes to, you know, checking these off and taking action. I mean, maybe support means suggesting a code change. Maybe support means working with the LDC for loans and stuff. Maybe support means simply, you know, showing people where they can go to apply for something. I don't know, but that's how I see it.
Could you combine those two zoning ones into one action item?
Which, these two right here?
Those two, yeah.
I mean, it's tough to combine them into one because they're both
Different.
two separate zoning districts.
I know you're a planner, but if I were just a general resident of the town and I saw RB1 zoning, I would start moving on to the next thing automatically. It's just one of those things where if this is appealing to the general resident, I think that zoning kind of belongs with zoning.
As far as primary entity on that, it would probably be the ordinance committee, the one that we have to do zoning changes.
Yeah.
So to Adeline's question, is the intent of that action item, and I know a lot of these came from the public, but is the intent of that action item simplification of the zoning code?
It's more that the RB1 zoning district is like 70% vacant, that it hasn't accomplished its goal at all. And it's also in one of the highest value areas of the town, kind of in the uptown area mostly. So that it's a detriment to the town. It doesn't.
Gotcha.
It's 9:52, so we have 8 minutes. I hate to say this, but I don't feel like we're done with this. Does anyone disagree? Do we feel like we can move away from this goal yet? Or what would help us move on? What more do we need to discuss on it?
I want to kind of go back to Joyce's concern about what the town board's expectation of the CIC is relative to a lot of this, because it can get heavy, right?
Right.
You guys take your job seriously, and so you look at all this and say, hey, how are we going to make a dent in these things? And so you don't need me or anyone else around for this conversation necessarily, but that's part of the bigger conversation has to be had here. Is what's the role? What's the town's specific role? What's the CIC specific role as it relates to some of these items? And in a chunk of the cases, it might just be accountability. It's our job to ask the question. LDC, where are you on this? Ordinance committee, where are you on this? Those kinds of things. If that's the case, then that might give the CIC some level of comfort that they can, just hold everybody accountable to their goals. But I do read that the stress there around, my gosh, there's a lot here, and what can we really reasonably be expected to do? So that might be a conversation for next time.
Yeah, well, the CIC, at least since I've been involved, tends to be the gathering place. Mm-hmm. Like I can see how I describe it in my mind, but it's more of a picture. But we gather all the information, we send out all the little teams and committees and do the hard work, and then come back, and then officially we make recommendations based on that, or except for with some of the other committees, like the ordinance committee makes its own recommendations. We got some artwork. But yeah, so it isn't always that the CIC is the responsible entity, but I do feel like, we're the ones who check in, make sure it's happening, or if it's not working, find out a new way to make it happen.
I think in 2019, we haven't been really able to do this too much in 2020, but we had the opportunity, or we actually had at some point, but we had oversight, and Sarah, you developed an agenda where at each meeting we would have a different responsible party come to us, talk to us about what they've achieved, what they haven't achieved, where they're at, so that we could get that overview. And I think that's a really good, process for us to use for all of these, because it's going to take that kind of parsing out, that kind of planning to let people know we're interested in this action step and give them enough notice so that they know that in June they're going to be coming before the CIC with some kind of an update of what's happened. And that's how we actually keep abreast of a lot of this. But we're going to have to make sure we understand who the responsible parties are. It's a little difficult now, I think, because, Doug did identify the responsible entities, and that has been very helpful for me as I go through this, because just seeing kind of a blank page, you don't really get the effect of how much work one of these committees, let's say the Economic Development Committee or the LDC, is going to be doing. Economic development is going to be one heck of a busy committee, that's for darn sure.
Yeah, well, in an effort to get us wrapped up, let me know what you guys think. What if, and Eric, I know this means work for you, or I can help you with this. What if we try and put some of these things we've talked about into a revision, at least for this goal, and maybe not come back to this until we have that. And so maybe we work on something else next week. And then relook at this with some of these suggestions, like these that Doug had and some of the other stuff we talked about filled in.
Yeah, that seems appropriate.
Sounds good.
I would agree with that.
Because I also anticipate that the CIC, we might have to talk about a couple other things in the coming weeks. We have a couple projects coming to fruition, and I think we should be looking at them. Like the Middle Cheshire Road project is almost done, and we haven't talked about that in a long time.
Are we also, between this and the next time we meet on this, should we be thinking about how to rank things for this importance category? Is that something that's going to be pre-filled out in this, or is that something that we're going to determine after this has been?
Ideally, I think we fill it out in the draft stage before the comp plan's adopted. But I mean, in the past, we did it later. We changed it.
No.
I'll provide recommendations, but if you guys want to suggest the level of importance, feel free. And, obviously the CIC being the one they might not be the primary entity on all these, but they're generally the ones that's going to be incorporating all these action items. I would love to have your comments on what you feel are the most important ones. That can always be revised at a later date if you guys feel like it, but it's 9:50.
Well, and then my final question about importance is there's importance and there's availability to accomplish something. Some things might be the most important, like protecting the lake, but it's not necessarily a definable goal and something that is immediately achievable. So some of these are going to be much easier to achieve than others. So it's kind of difficult to indicate importance when, is that a to-do list, an ordered to-do list, or what are we looking for with that goal?
Sometimes what we've done in the past is, like with other plans, short-term, long-term, or ongoing, or 1 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, or ongoing or something. We have a lot that are ongoing goals or action steps but anyway, to close this up, so are we in agreement that at least for next week, we'll hold off on this? Or what do you think, Eric?
I would say let's hold off on the economic development section while we can make some changes based on Doug's comments from the CIC. If we wanted to talk about the comp plan, we could also go to the infrastructure section, which the Plan Public Works Committee touched on last week. And the CIC.
Oh yeah, that was last week, wasn't it? That was Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then there's also the government or yeah, government operations one, or town operations one, excuse me.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be good with that. All right, so I'll send out an email, or Oksana or both of us, with some updates on when we'll come back to this one. And then in the meantime, CIC will meet again next week on a topic that we'll confirm as we get closer. Does that work?
It works.
Yeah,
Sounds
Thank
good.
you, Economic
you,
Development
Matt.
Committee members. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Matt. And we'll be in touch.
Yeah, anything you need, let me know.
All right, until next time. Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.
Thank you.
You.
yeah.
So long.
Bye.
Good night.